Hello, good afternoon, and welcome to our webinar on dashboards that drive action. So I'm very thrilled and excited that I'm here together with Zebra BI, Zan Perkovic, and that we are going to be presenting this webinar. Before we start, though, I just want to make you guys aware of the fact that less than 1 in 5 analytic insights ever drive business actions. So by far, most reports out there are just sitting there. Now, what we're trying to do today is see if we can close that gap and get closer to 100%, okay? So what are we going to cover? So we're going to look at like traditional reports, the ones that I find at all of my clients and why they fall short. Then we'll look at IBCS, Zebra BI, and give you a solution to that issue. And we will also perform a live demo later on. Now we have a few poll questions, so I want to start off by those. So let me hand it over to the backstage and ask to get the poll questions up. Okay. Yes, in your reports, how often do you feel they clearly tell you what actions to take? Okay, how often do you feel you are using a report and it's very clearly actionable? It makes you get up and take some kind of action. Okay, sometimes, rarely, almost always isn't up there all that much. Yeah. So yes, votes are coming in almost always. So that's a few people. Probably those are the ones that already have IBCS implemented within their organization. Okay, so sometimes, yeah, and rarely. Yeah, these are the kind of answers I actually was expecting. Okay, let's move on. The next question. Can we get the next poll question up? Or yes. This is also something that is relevant. Within your organization, people use a report. Will they all arrive at the same conclusion? Or will it still be ambiguous? Will they use a report and afterwards still have it open to interpretation and have different results, different conclusions that they draw from a report? And not always, right? And rarely, never even. People never. Yeah, but never. That is, I also find that quite often is the case, that a report is ambiguous, open to interpretation. All right. Yeah, so sometimes it doesn't happen all that often. Can we move on to the next question? All reports in your entire organization look alike, whether it's strictly operational, or it might be financial, or it might be risk management, or it might be HR. Regardless of the reporting domain, all your reports look alike. They are all very similar. Yeah, almost always. So I think there's a few people in here that already implemented IBCS. I'm kind of giving that away already, but almost always. Okay, so that sounds good. So then obviously that can only be the case if you've already agreed upon a particular standard, right? It cannot come out, it cannot result that way by chance. I think we have one more question, don't we? Yeah. Yeah, this is also something that I want to know. So to get to know the audience a little bit, we apply IBCS standards. We're already doing that. Of course, I'm going to introduce them during this webinar, but I'm just curious, like how many people in the audience today already are. Sometimes, rarely, never. Ooh, there's also people that never have been using it. So this is going to be a very interesting webinar to you guys. Okay. Sounds good. Looks good. Kind of like I was expecting, though. Sure. So I'm going to move on and share my screen with you guys again. And there we go. Yeah. And so we're going to move on. So now we have some freebies that we want to hand out this webinar. So we will give you a 1 hour report assessment. There's a limited amount of 1 hour report assessments, and there is also trial licenses. More on that later during this webinar. So make sure that you stay tuned for that, okay? Now, let's move on. Why do traditional reports fall short? Why many of my organizations where I'm at, the clients that I visit, I find loads of the reports that I see in real life, in practice out there, fall short. Now, why is that? A couple different reasons. First off, lack of standardization. So if you do not agree upon a particular standard, all analysts within your organization are just going to do their best, yeah? And they're going to just produce a report as best they can. But if they did not agree upon any particular standard, they are all going to look different. Now, this is going to require a significant cognitive effort from report users to switch from report to the next, to the next, to the next. They all work different, they look different, you need to navigate them in a different way. Okay, so this is something that we certainly want to avoid. Move towards a particular standard. Insight without call to act. Now, this is crucial, yeah? If there's insight transferred from one individual to the next, regardless of the medium used, that could very well be a BI tool, but if there's insight transferred and that insight does not trigger some kind of an action, okay, it doesn't add value. The only a source of value for organization is the action taken by a user. So if there's just insight without action, it is a dead end. For instance, I have a report here, typical report. I just did a Google search, and this is one of the top ones that came up, but one that is very typical and one that I find at many of my organization. So this is a customer overview report. And it's telling us that one third of our clients, roughly one third of our clients, is in the US. So the question is, this is what your report user is going to ask themselves. Do I have to do something about this? Well, you don't know. You don't know if you need to. So are you going to do something about this? No, of course not. She's not going to do anything because she doesn't know if she needs to. So she's just going to look at this report, shrug her shoulders, go whatever, and close it again. Okay, so this is a dead end. And then also ineffective visualizations. Quite often you will find that there's a lot of decorative elements and a lot of very different visualizations chosen. But at the end of the day, these kind of visuals are going to make your report users wonder, now what is the message? So what am I being told here? Am I being told anything at all? And if that is unclear, then there's certainly not an action gonna result out of this report. Okay, so ineffective visualizations. So now we're going to look at the solution here to these issues. So standardization, yes, so we're going to look at the IBCS, the International Business Communication Standards, and obviously the Zebra BI visuals that apply these standards, right? Certified visuals that apply all these standards. Now let's look at the scientific foundation. So IBCS based upon practical experience and also science. So now let's look at these two kind of activities that we undertake as data analysts. So on the one hand, we analyze data, obviously, but on the other hand, we also visualize that data. Now, if we look at data analysis and the scientific foundation, so what scientific field do we base that up on? Okay, now those are going to be beta kind of sciences, statistics, mathematics, computer science, all these kind of scientific fields are we going to leverage in order to perform data analysis. When it comes to visualizing this data, now we could take our statistics books and our mathematics books and learn how to visualize from these books, but now we're thinking from the perspective of a data analyst. And actually, we are going to serve our visuals to our users. This is like a marketeer. You don't want to think from your own perspective, but from the perspective of whoever you're producing your product. So in our case, those are going to be the report users. That is going to be what you want to understand, you users want a scientific field that understands report users. These are human beings. So now we don't want to use beta, we want to use cognitive psychology. So that is the scientific domain that we want to leverage when we want to visualize our data. Okay. Now, so cognitive psychology, so this is the field that studies how the human brain works. So how do we memorize our perception processes, thinking processes, all these kind of mental processes. Yeah? So the field that studies that. Used in all sorts of industries, advertising, of course, cognitive psychology will be heavily used there. If you have an ad at the side of a road, you want the result of people seeing that ad to be that they buy your product. So then you need to understand what happens in the human brain. How do they process what you have out there on that ad? Okay. product design, change management, but also BI. Yeah, so our domain, business intelligence, or maybe a little wider management information in general. Yeah, so what can we learn from the field of cognitive psychology in terms of how to visualize your data? Well, actually, there's two aspects. How can we reduce the cognitive load? So what do we know about the human brain, and how can we use that in order to reduce the load it takes, the cognitive load it takes for users to get the message that you want to bring across? On the one hand, and on the other hand, I slipped a few slides. And on the other hand, it will be how to promote action. How do you make sure that after users use your report, they will get up and take some kind of action? Okay, so this is what we want to learn from cognitive psychology. So pre-attentive attributes. So this is a very powerful aspect. These kind of patterns will be processed by the human brain within 0.2 seconds, like as fast as you can blink your eyes. So if you leverage these kind of patterns, yeah, your users are going to be very efficient in consuming the reports. That is something that with the IBCS is based upon, and the Gestalt principles. Now, this is also something that is really important to take into account when you're visualizing data. Okay, this is what we can learn from cognitive psychology. Enclosure, if you want to make sure that your users understand that a group of objects belong together, ensure you add a common object below it. Like so, you can either draw a line around a few objects within one visual, or on your entire report, make sure that a group of visuals are perceived as being part of the same group by adding an object, a common object below it. Similarity, right? Make sure that if you want to have your users understand that two groups are part of the same group, two entities are part of the same group, make sure you do so by color or shape or any other way, right? So either within one visual or on your report page in total. Continuity, so the top and the bottom visuals here would be the same for computers, but for human beings, the bottom one is far easier to digest, far easier to understand. Closure, now we perceive a letter T, actually it's not, there's three separate objects. So here also the left and the right top side here, it is the same thing, but on the right hand side, on account of our brain filling the gap, we see a panda. So we can also leverage that, right? So on the left-hand side, you'll see that the y-axis and the grid lines, etc. You don't need to add all of that. The human mind will fill the gap. Connection, if you add a common line through some objects, they will be perceived as being part of the same group. Proximity, right? Making sure you add objects close to one another will ensure your users will perceive them as being part of the same group. So either in one visual or on a report, yeah, if I add comments to a visual right next to the visual, the human brain will understand that they are part of the same group, that they belong to each other. And symmetry, so either within one visual or on your report page, try to make it symmetric, right? Either left, right, or top, bottom, as much as you can. Try to achieve symmetry on your reports. So okay, so this is cognitive psychology, and this is leveraged by the IBCS. Now, second, I also said that what we can learn from cognitive psychology is how to ensure reports become actionable. Okay. Now, I have a very densely populated slide here. This is an analytical solution. This is an entire analytical platform. I happen to have chosen Microsoft Fabric, could have also used Databricks or any other platform. They all are similar in some kind of way, where we have data sources, some ETL processes, storage facilities, some semantic layers, and then reports. You might have some data science modules. Of course, they all are different, but this is more or less the way that analytical platforms are. Like this is the architecture of an analytical platform. My main point right now, though, is that all the arrows that you see, all the arrows all point in the same direction. Yeah? It ends up all in reports. That is where all of our investments goes, right? In these reports that we are producing at the end of the day. Yeah. So these are expenses, and these are serious expense, significant expenses, right? It's your licenses with your software suppliers, it's the people that you hire, and all these additional expenses that you need to that you need in order to arrive at these reports. So then we don't want this to be expenses. We want this to be an investment, our data platform. So an investment is only an investment if there's ROI, return on investment. So where is this investment coming from? From a qualitative point of view. Now, again, I mentioned this before. Is that insight? No, it's not insight. Insight by itself does not add value. We need some kind of action in order to be able to arrive at ROI. Okay? Now, you can test whether your reports are actionable or not. And I would highly recommend that you do this for your management information that you're using currently. Can this management information that I'm using, can I answer these questions? First, is my performance good or bad? Second, to what extent? Third, why? And four, what are we going to do about it? Okay? Can I answer these 4 questions based upon this piece of management information that I am using? Now, again, I have a Google search Power BI report. We've already seen this report. Yeah, but here again, I'm going to start off by asking the first question: is my performance good or bad? Right? That was the problem that we encountered before. I don't know. I don't know whether this is good or bad. So I don't know what to do about it. I don't even know if I should. So I'm not going to act because I don't know what to do, nor if I should. Okay? Your user won't know. But then I have a second example here. Yeah, is my performance good or bad? Well, to what extent? Yeah, because now we don't know, because red is bad and green is good. That's universal, right? So 145 is probably below target, but we don't know what the target is. So we don't know to what extent this is bad. So we don't know if we really should something about do about this, let alone that we know what. So no, this also is not actionable. So what do we need? What do we need in order for this to become actionable? Well, we have to look at the surrounding context. That is key here. Now, this is an example I would like to provide. Your doctor tested your blood, and your doctor tells you your XYZ score is 120. Now, we have insight, right? We did not know this before, but now we do. So I visualize this, and now we have a nice column chart. Usually you have these charts for every business unit or for every product or for every client. You get to see your XYZ score, you have insight. But is this good or bad? I don't know. So if my doctor tells me your XYZ score is 120, I don't know if that's good or bad. So I don't know if I need to do something about it. Okay? So we need our doctor to give us some context. Saying, okay, 120, that is not where we want it to be. We were trying to get your score at 180. That is what we were working towards. Or the average of people your age is 180. Or last year your score was 180. Any number that we can compare our actual to in order to provide for meaning. Because now we can focus on the variance, and that is also key, right? So we want to make sure that we focus on how much do we deviate, what is the variance. So now if we ask these questions, is my performance good or bad? Well, it's bad. To what extent? Well, it's 60 below, and that's 33%. Why? So now this is also important. Your report also needs to allow for this. So that could either be a comment, that could be additional detail pages, that could be tooltips, that could be anything that allow for your users to perform analysis and figure out, what is the cause? Why? So here I have an example. You just hover over a data point in one of your charts, and then you get additional insight. You are not doing so well because you are eating more junk food and you stop doing physical exercise. Now, that could be very well be why. So now, what are we going to do about it? So now we know. So I'll leave that bag of chips and I'll go to the gym tonight. Right now, I'm prompted to act. I know that I need to act and I know what to do. So this is what we are aiming for. Report user engagement. This is also the entire setup of your report is important. So you start off by a home page, which will be like a summary of the entire report. So at a glance, you will know how am I doing. And then you have detail pages, drill through pages, and tooltip pages to actually navigate through the report and get a better understanding of why and what are we going to do about it. Explain variances. Now, this is something that I apply at all of my clients, explaining variances. It's something clients usually tell me that it would be a nice to have, not necessary, and I strongly disagree. If I have a deviation from my target, the visual, I cannot derive off the visual what the cause is, and it also doesn't say it, then what am I going to do? If I don't know why I'm behind target, then I don't know what I can do about it. So I won't be prompted to act. So these are really important, and as we'll see, Zebra BI visuals easily allow for including these kind of context-aware content. Now let's look at the IBCS key recommendations. So IBCS, I mentioned this before, so it is it's an institute, and also it is a set of recommendations, okay, on how to visualize your data. So starting off, now this is something I've seen more often, but I don't always see this applied consistently. Time goes on the horizontal axis, so time goes from left to right. So any kind, so there could be years or months or weeks or seconds even, and structure, so entities, there could be your cities or clients or customer or products or business units, anything that you might want to present, you'll do this along the vertical axis. Fill patterns. Now this is something that is really typical, and IBC is known for these fill patterns. Solid is used for actual. So in a chart, if you are showing your actual performance, how you actually did, it will always be solid. Planned or budget or target or however you might want to call it, did not happen yet. So we'll only show an outline. Forecast, somewhere in between. So we'll show this hatched. And the past will always be a lighter shade of what you use for your present shade. Unify all titles. So also that doesn't only go for your charts, but also for your tables and also for your pages, and everything that you want to provide it for a title should also always be unified. So it doesn't necessarily have to be in this particular structure, but make sure that you always do it the same way. And highlight variances, red and green. So also limit the use of colors. Don't use colors unless they have a very particular purpose. And highlight your message, okay? So that is something, again, a visual is not a piece of painting. A visual is meant to bring a message across. So this is an example, right? So I bought a stock at 204, sold it at 106. Yeah, but the message is that I almost lost 50% on that stock. So if we highlight that, it'll jump right at your report users. And doing all of this will allow for consistency. Okay, so if we make sure that all of our analysts apply the standard, all reports within your organization are going to look alike. Now that is extremely valuable, because ensuring consistency, and if we ensure that all reports throughout your entire organization look alike, we can leverage this concept of pattern recognition. Now, pattern recognition is something that is a very strong concept within our brains, because it has helped us surviving over the years, over the ages. Making sure that we understand which snake is poisonous and which is not. Finding these kind of patterns is something that is really a strong concept in the human mind. And if we manage to ensure all reports look alike and you navigate them the same way, we can use this concept of pattern recognition, making it far more efficient for report users to use their management information. And it's demo time. So I'm very thrilled and excited that I'm doing this together with Zebra BI, and right now, Zan Berkovic is going to do the demo. So he's the sales enablement lead at Zebra BI. He has over 10 years of experience turning analytics into business outcome. And I would like to say, Zan, over to you.
Yeah, great. Hi, Marnix. And nice to meet you, everyone. Great to be here. Very good introduction from your side into the theoretical impacts of what IBCS can do for companies. Let me just share my screen very quickly. And now I will show you on some practical examples what this could look like in your ideal scenario. So we will look at for over the next, let's say 15 to 20 minutes, into about 6 Power BI reports, and all of them will be a before and after on how this usually looks like in most companies that we work with so far, and how this could look like at the end. So spoiler alert, what you're seeing right now, this will be one of the afters. But before we go there, let's actually come here, and I will actually have a job for all of you. And this is that Marnix mentioned one thing. He mentioned that he will be doing only for this webinar an assessment, right? So what this means is that because we can only do this for a limited number, we decided to partner with him. So for all the people that will be chosen for this, they will also get a trial license of Zero BI. So you will get both of these solutions together. So both going from this assessment, how you're doing right now, to how you could be optimized and having this solution at the same time. But as I said, since we cannot do this for everyone, of course, the time is limited for Marnix and everything like that. What we will do is, if you have this inclination that this might be something that you might want, it will be an advantage to you to write the word assessment in the chat, right? So if you do that in this chat over here, you will have, spoiler alert, a little bit of a bigger chance to be chosen. But that's all that I will give you for now, and let's now show what this could look like on some practical examples. So before and afters, and we'll go through a bit of a different departments and use cases, right? So first thing that you will see is actually a sales dashboard. So what you see right now, and I'll go through all these things that Marnix was talking about before, right? So if you remember what he said, what is actionable and what is not actionable? What we mean by actionable is, can I make a business decision? If I can make that decision, then that report is actionable. If I cannot, it's not actionable. But how do I get there, right? So of course, I need to answer some of those business questions. So the first question is, how are we performing? So are we performing good or bad? How good, how bad? And then why this is happening? And then the last step is, what should we do about this, right? So let's apply this here, right? You're looking at this, see, okay, we have some sales dashboard, we have some KPIs here on the top left. So if you follow my arrow, so my pointer here, see we have some revenue numbers. We have AC, this stands for actuals. We have PL, this stands for plan. We have FC, this stands for forecast. So we have all this, and then we have the costs. Again, actual, planned, forecasted costs. We have the gross profit. So we have some KPIs here on the top left. But can we tell just from this, which one of these should we focus on? Which one is the biggest? Which one has the biggest impact on our bottom line, right? It's a bit hard to see, right? And also all of these other things that you see here. So you see some matrix tables here on the bottom. So we have the structural breakdowns, but they don't really tell us a lot, right? Again, we have the actuals, we have the previous year, we have the plan for each of the KPIs here, for each of the product categories, for each of the groups. But again, we don't really know what we should focus on, right? Even if I cross filter, so I go for different KPIs, go for different particular groups, particular product categories. This doesn't really tell me much. And even this one, right? So the chart, the trend analysis, I still cannot make that decision. Of course, I see something is happening. We have some changes between the months and so on over the year, but doesn't really tell me much. So I'll go now to the after, right? Of course, you saw this already. So I started with this as a spoiler, but I will now ask the same questions as before, right? So you see, here on the top left, we have the same KPIs from before. So we have revenue, we have costs, gross profit, gross margin in percentage, right? You see all that, and we see some things that are calculated by the visual automatically, right? So we see these variances that Marnix was talking about, and we see one more important thing. We see that everything on this screen is either gray, black, green, or red, right? So the gray means we're looking at either previous year in this kind of pattern, or this outline with the plan. Of course, IBCS is included in this automatically, but we also see these variances, right? So green means something, red means something, right? And this should be pretty easy explanatory to everyone. Green means something good has happened, red means something bad has happened. So if I ask you now, which of these four should we focus on most, right? So if we start at the start, if we look at this first one, revenue, we see that revenue in 2021 was $8.8 million. And we see that this is 1.3% above the plan. This is shown with the green color. and we see we are 0.4% below forecast. So we say, okay, this is pretty much in line with what we planned for it, what we forecasted, only a little bit of a difference. But then we look at the cost. And we see cost actually went up a lot more compared to plan, and also quite a lot more compared to forecast than when we look at revenue, right? So it might already give us an inkling. Maybe we should focus more on costs right now than on revenue. So we might now answer that first question, right? So how are we performing? How good, how bad? With some of these, right? So what, and then what should I focus on between these, right? Also, if we look at gross profit here, we see forecast is actually very much below what we. So we actually are not achieving our forecast at all, right? Looking at gross profit. Now, why is this happening? So maybe we now did this and we analyze, okay, we should probably focus on this, but then this doesn't really tell us everything, right? We need more information. And to get more information, we need to break things down with more context, right? So either structurally or through a time dimension, and ideally both, right? What you see here. So with the time dimension here on the right, you see we have the Zebra BI charts brought in, and we have a variance all going from previous year through all these months to the actuals. And we see for each one what's happening, what's going on. We see we have comments brought in, which is very important, and we also have the tables here twice, Zebra BI tables, and these two show us that something is happening on some particular groups, right? So, for example, we are looking at costs right now. We see costs went up quite a lot compared to plan. So why did this happen? Well, probably because of this, mostly because of this group, right? We see that it's the biggest overperformance compared to plan. If we hover over it to see, we have this, what Marnix was talking about before, right? This report page tooltip. We see this breakdown also by, in this case, countries, right? We don't have to even leave the screen. Of course, we can go more in depth, go through this, drill through, and so on. I won't show you all this right now, maybe later if we have some more time. But this is just to give you an idea, right? We already know now, okay, we should focus on cost. We should probably focus on this group. If you look at product categories, well, some of these three product categories are the biggest impacts to our missed plan. And if you look at the months, you see, okay, something really bad happened in October, something bad also happened in April, right? The idea behind this whole IBCS approach is that everybody can understand this, right? As soon as this is implemented, everybody can know. Because this is also scaled, everybody can see, okay, the biggest outliers are impacting our business the most, right? And then the last step, one of the most important steps, is you need to bring in the comments for the decision maker. The decision maker needs to have a comment so that they know why this happened. So for each data point, why something happened, why, and so on. And as you can see, as we change this, also comments are fully dynamic, so the comments also change depending on what they're commenting. So this was just a quick introduction, right? But as I mentioned, we have quite a lot more to go through. So through this, I'll go a bit faster, but just to show you also what's possible that you didn't even think was possible before with traditional Power BI, right? So this, again, is something that we see in traditional Power BI. Now here we actually brought the comments in. So we have a profit and loss statement, traditionally very hard to do in Power BI. And of course, we brought in the comments, which is great, right? We know we can tell a bit from this what's happening. But again, if I just give this to the decision maker and I tell him, good luck, make a decision, can he make a decision, right? Well, it's a bit hard, right? First, of course, we would have to look at all of these numbers, see, okay, this is the plan, this is the actual. We do have some comments. Maybe this will help him a bit. But if I give him something like this, so I'll show you the after now. Now, this might be a bit easier to process, right? So if you remember before from the introduction of what Marnix was talking about, he mentioned that we process visual information a lot faster than just information that is all in tables, right? And something like this with the waterfall, structured waterfall, so in this case calculation waterfall, going all the way from revenue with subtotals that you can right click and invert, show as results and so on. You see all the way at the bottom, net income then becomes 24.5%, right? Maybe if we change this to balance sheet view, something different happens, right? You see the assets, we see the liabilities, how this impacts. If you look at the cash flow, you see something different happens again, right? So all of this is fully dynamic, and as you see comments, they should of course be dynamic as well, right? So if I change the months as well, see comments are changing. And the idea is the same thing that you saw before. It's also pretty easy for the report builders to build, right? So I know that we have a pretty mixed group here today. So some of you are decision makers that will be consuming these reports. So most of this is for you, but for the report builders, right? What's also important for you is that time will be saved as well, right? Because some of these things, so you only need something like a plan and an actual, and this, what you see here, will be calculated by the visual, right? So you can already see how this might look in the best case scenario, right? And if we take a look here at the net income percentage, we can maybe see, okay, what if this operating income was actually not a result? If we don't show it as a result, we see these changes, right? So these things are also fully dynamic, and the idea is they should be dynamic, right? Your business is not static. It's changing all the time, and as it changes, all of these things should change as well, right? And right now we're only showing two levels of the hierarchy, right? Only revenue, and then what's below it here, costs, what's below it. But of course, you can go a lot further and see, let's say you want to see how this looks for each region, for each country that you're looking at, for each product unit, for each business unit, and so on, right? Something like this can also be done with further breakdowns. All right, let's go further. And let me show you now something that is still related to finance. And after that, we'll go into a lot of different looks for different actual departments. But for right now, we'll still stay in financial departments. And I can ask again, right? What is happening with my business? What should I focus on? I need to make a decision, and this decision needs to be good, right? So what is happening here? I see I have an executive summary, right? So I have EBITDA here, so some KPIs here on the top left, EBIT, net earnings, free cash flow, CapEx, and so on. For each of them, I see again, we have those numbers. And we have this table, this big table, the matrix table that everybody is familiar with from additional Power BI, and it's full of numbers, and it doesn't really tell me much, right? We also see something here, actually. So if we decipher this legend, we see we have actuals with this light blue, we have plan with this color, and then forecast with this kind of red color. And if we take a look at what's happening, actually, we are right now in September. So we have the actual data, so this light blue only until the end of September. But we have the forecast and the plan data all the way to the end, right? So if we look at this and say, okay, what's going on? What should I focus on for each of the businesses? It can be somewhat done, right? You can take a look at this to see, okay, some of these are bigger than the other ones and so on, but it's pretty hard to make that decision, right? Also, if you focus on a particular thing here, again, pretty hard, right? Even if you have month to date, year to date, and full year things built out, right? But if I go to the after, like, let me show you something like this. Now, this again is what it could look like. So if you remember, one thing that Marnik said also that's very important is if we want to process information, it shouldn't be cluttered, right? So if I go back very quickly to this before, see there's a lot of things on the screen, a lot of numbers, a lot of very big numbers, don't really tell me much. So if I go over here, and I have some of these things, a lot of these things actually concise, right? And what you will also notice is if I go to this one, this is the same Super BI chart that you saw before, except that something looks different than before, right? So I already alluded to this a bit, but in here we are in September. So for a lot of you decision makers, you want to know what's happening, what's the outlook for the full year, right? Even if you don't have the full year of data for the actuals yet, you want to see where are we going to land, right? So if I say, okay, I want to focus on free cash flow, I see that again something is happening on free cash flow. See, we are quite a lot below the performance of previous year. We're quite a lot below the performance of plan. Now I can see this very clearly, right? I see my actuals only until the end of September. I see how it is compared to plan, and I see what it looks like when I also bring in the forecast, right? And for you report builders, this actually works automatically. You just need to bring in the forecast, and this will actually bring it in until the end of the year. And here we have a total column that actually brings all this together. And we see if we fulfill our current forecast, we'll be actually 39 million below the plan, right? So all this is in millions, 39 million below the plan. We have some comments here, so we can see, okay, what should we focus on? Some of these are pretty funny, but you get the idea, right? So you can do this for each one, and then makes those really important business decisions that you need to make on the top level of your business, right? But this is, of course, this whole IBCS approach is not only for the top level of the business, it's also for very specific reports that you might want to look at. So how are we performing? Is it better or worse than last year? Plan, forecast, etc., right? So what you see here again is something like an HR report. So how many people did we hire in this year, and what was the plan? How did we compare to previous year, etc., right? So you see something like this, and I can do that same thing again, right? Right now, you should already be pretty familiar with how we are going about this, right? So what is going on with my business? How good, how bad is it? Why is it like that? And then what should I do, right? With this, again, hard to do it, right? We have some, you see, we employed some people full-time, employed some people for the contractor. So this is an HR report, of course. And so on, we see we have some different hire types. We have, again, this matrix table here with some numbers and a clustered column chart, right? And if I go to the after, and I'll show you this thing again. So something like this. And let's say I want to focus on my employment type by contractor, or even just leave it like that. You can see that I can pretty clearly find out what's going on. I can see my comparison to previous year. See, looks like I hired a lot more people, right? If I go over here, can I do this as quickly as before? No, right? No. Again, so the same idea. How many did I hire by general hire? How many went through recruiter? Oh, we actually see some red things here, right? What are those? So for this one, and so on, right? So the idea is not only that we should be able to make decisions, this should also be pretty quick to fall into our eyes. And because everything is scaled, because the good things are green, bad things are red, everything is very quick to be understood, right? So that's the idea. All right, now something completely different. We have an inventory template. So a lot of you also work in departments, so work for departments or companies that produce products, right? So of course you want to see what the inventory is looking like, so also manufacturing and so on. And of course with something like this might be a bit hard to do, right? But if I go to the after page and I show you something like this again, now again this looks a bit easier, right? What you saw before, it's kind of a similar thing. So we have a full year outlook because we don't have full year of actual data yet in this case, right? We're only in September. And we see we have some red things, we have some green things, we have variances that are looking at particular months, right? So what's happening in April, what's happening in May, what's happening in June. We also have some comments here, and these comments actually tell us. We see who the comment was added by, and we see we have a hyperlink that we can look at. So we can click on this and then get brought into, let's say, our CRM or something like that, and then make that decision, right? So this, something like this, was a lot easier to make decisions than what you saw before. And that is what we are talking about this whole time, right? Now, one last thing before I show you something specific, if we have time, of course, is the benchmarking. Benchmarking specifically for financial people here. This is also pretty important. And what you will see here is actually all live data taken from, in this case, Yahoo Finance, from all the listed companies. So from their publicly traded information. And we'll take a look at their income statements, balance sheet, cash flow, and then compare companies that compete in similar industries, right? So what we see right now, we have Nike here, Nike. Then we also have Adidas. And what's going on? We see actual numbers, we have previous year numbers, we have some commentary, and then again the same for Adidas and so actual previous year and so on, right? Going all the way from what the sales were, what the cost of goods sold were, what the gross income is, yada yada yada. Right? You get the idea. If I go to the after, let's say I'll stay here on the income statement first. Now, something like this, again, is a lot easier to process with information, right? So you can get very clear, very deep insights. You can do multiple levels of analysis and go very deep into what's happening. Maybe you want to do more comparisons, right? More benchmarks. Say something like this. Okay, maybe you want to compare to Under Armour. So for all of you that are doing benchmarking, so benchmarking, comparing to different departments between in your company or different regions in your company, different countries in your company, the performance, something like this is also super important, right? And of course, it can be a different view depending on what exactly you want to benchmark against. But again, if I just go back here, and now everybody should be pretty easily able to tell me, okay, how is Nike has performed this year compared to Adidas, right? You can see all the way, if you go all the way down to the bottom, Nike was 16% for EBITDA margin, and Adidas was 8%, right? So this already tells us quite a lot, right? Of course, not the full story, maybe something else impacted that, but with something like this, especially with bringing in the comments, as you can see here on each of the numbers, then the comment can explain this, and then you can, as a business decision maker, make that decision, and you can be sure that that decision was actually a data-driven decision, right? Which is what everybody says they want, and now you have an actual opportunity to do it. All right, now this was all that I wanted to show you from these things, but since we have some time left, what we will do, so before Marek come back on stage to start the Q&A session, I'll also show you how, for all the people that are here developing these reports, how easy this is to build, right? So we're actually here on the blank page, and I'll show you in just a few moments how we can build something like this, like a page like this, with a very quick build, right? So for your report builders, what's most important for you here is that your decision makers, of course, understand this, but also that it's easy for you to build, right? So what this means is a lot of the DAX work that you would have to do previously is taken out. So let me just show you here on the right, we have some placeholders, values, previous year, plan, forecast, and as you will see, these are pretty easy to take, to actually learn, right? So if I just add something like this, actuals, I get a very big card, so I added the cards visual, 8.8 million. It doesn't really tell me much, right? What's going on with my business? I don't really know. Maybe I can break it down also by KPIs. So just add some KPIs here in the groups, KPIs, placeholder. Now I get four separate KPIs, all contained within one visual. So what does this tell me? Again, not very much, right? Numbers just by themselves are not actionable. So if you remember from the start, what Marek was talking about, he said, you need context for your numbers. And then once you have context, then you can make actual decisions, right? So how we do that, we just bring it in this context, right? So we just drag and drop something like a plan. We just drag and drop something like a previous year. And this will actually calculate all of these things for us, right? We can also break things down. So something with the category, something like this, break it down by quarters, and do something like that as well, right? So I won't go super in depth on all this, because that's the point of that assessment that Marnix can help you with. So if you haven't already written the board assessment yet, I highly recommend you do so. But let me actually show you the rest of what this could look like, right? You saw how easy this was to build, right? With just a few clicks. And we can do something similar with this, right? So I added the tables here, and we will do a structural breakdown. So again, only the things that we added before: actuals, plan, previous year. So what's happening with my business? We see some red things, we see some green things. Let me actually switch to the native matrix. This is all that we did, right? Now I can ask you, can you make a business decision right now? It might be a bit hard, right? But if I come here, can you make a business decision now? It's a bit easier, right? You see that, let's say we're looking at plan, comparison to plan. You see some business units are underperforming quite severely, right? Maybe we should focus more on these. Maybe if you look at previous year, we see some business units are underperforming compared to the previous year, right? But not actually compared to plan. So maybe we accounted for that. So things like this that were previously pretty hard or even impossible to do, or you had to do a lot of DAX work, can now be done with just a few clicks. And then your decision makers are actually able to make those decisions, right? So something like this, of course, you can go more in depth. We can add multiple layers, multiple steps like that. But let me just show you one last thing before I run out of time. And this is this, right? You cannot make the full decision if you don't have a full context. And for the full context, you need a trend, right? You need a breakdown. In this case, I'll do it by months. And just to show you how easy this is, again, just drag and drop something like this, actual previous year plan, and we get a pretty quickly built actionable dashboard, an overview page that tells us what's going on. So if I were to go back here, so this is a native one, and I tell you, can you tell me how our business is performing compared to last year, right? And I need this answer very quickly. We are in a meeting. So what will you do? So you will go here into the legend and see, okay, this year was light blue, last year was orange, and then compare kind of sizes across the months, right? But if I just switch with one click to this one, and if I ask the same question, well, you can tell me immediately, because you have a separate data column, not data column, data series for comparing to previous year, you tell me immediately with numbers. Okay, in the start of the year, we're doing better than last year, right? Okay, a bit of a hiccup in February, but then in the middle of the year, we're performing actually quite a lot worse than last year. But then we kind of pick it up again towards the end of the year, right? You can tell me immediately with numbers, and if we add some comments on these particular things, like this, then that decision is even easier to make for your business, right? So yeah, that was the idea. But you see, we are running a bit out of time, so I just wanted to show you this, and now I will stop sharing my screen and invite Marnix back on stage so we can start with the Q&A.
Thank you so much for that, Sam. And I think you really showed how these visuals can make life of the report users far more fun, easier, more efficient, and more effective. So great job, and I think you really showed the value of this. Let's head over to the Q&A. We there have some questions that we've used. So let's start off by a question from Pascal Petro. So what are the names of the visuals you used so I can download these visuals? Yeah, so there's actually 3 of them, and you can find them, of course, just in App Source, the way that you find all of your visuals in Power BI. And they are Zebra BI charts, Zebra BI tables, and Zebra BI comments. Yeah, so transmission. So thank you for that question. Where do you get the comments from? Do you input it in Excel? Well, that is a very good question, and there's actually multiple ways of doing that. So first of all, the visuals allow for adding these comments. So there's functionality available within the visuals. That's also demoed briefly. So you can just go over to the visual, click on any item where you want to add a comment to, then you will be presented with a little comment box, and you can add your comments, and the comments will be stored within the visual. Yeah, so that is one option in which you'll be able to do so. Now, Zebra BI charts and tables, all visuals, obviously are Microsoft certified visuals. One of the consequences is that data can never leave a visual, right? That Microsoft doesn't allow for certified visuals for data to ever leave the visual, of course. So if you want your data, if you want your comments to get stored in your data warehouse, there's this option of adding a Power App on the report page. Yeah, so Power Apps integrate very well with Power BI. So you also have your context available. So you click on any item, you add your comment to the Power App, the comment will be sent to your backend. So that could be Dataverse or SQL Server or any kind of Databricks, any kind of data warehouse that you might be using, and then we'll bring those back into Power BI. Yeah, so you either use the functionality within the charts themselves, or you set something up so you store the comments in a data storage facility wherever you might want to do. So Bas Simons, these green, red colors are not always suitable to colorblind people. Is there a solution for that? And yes, absolutely, there is a solution for that. So these visuals also all have a colorblind friendly setting. So you could also, and I've quite often set that up for my users, that, I mean, you don't want to, so 95% of all people are not colorblind. And so for those 95%, you do not want to lose that ability of green and red, because it's so powerful, yeah? You don't need to explain green and red. So you don't want to not use green and red at all. You do want to use it for this 95%. So what I usually set up, I'll have it dynamic. Yeah, so just a little slicer at the top of a screen, and so users that are colorblind set their report to colorblind friendly, and then they'll create a personal bookmark. Yeah, so just for the colorblind report users, they have a, and I've tested it many times because I've had many reports where I use this and it works. Yeah, so colorblind people always tell me that it works very well. Yeah, so thanks for that question. And Ilse, why not using bar in bar graphs? This will save some space in the dashboard. And I have a little hard time understanding what you mean by a bar in a bar graph. So a bar chart is a chart where you, so along the vertical axis show horizontal bars, yeah. So and indeed that is what we try to do. So yes, we are actually trying to use these bars in bar charts. So that's it, I think. I don't see any more questions coming in. Oh, so we're good. Thank you guys for showing the interest in the assessments. We will be, of course, there's a limited amount. We cannot do as many as we would like to. So not everyone is actually going to receive, but quite a lot of you will. So we will be reaching out to you. Also, you will be receiving a follow-up email. Yeah. So and in the follow-up email, we'll also make sure that we will add the links. A link, so you'll be able to, if you did not yet, notify us that you are interested in a assessment. You can still do so by responding to the follow-up email that you'll receive, and also you will be receiving information regarding the ZBI trial license. So make sure that you keep a close eye on your inbox. You will be receiving this shortly. So that's it for me. And we are also running out of time, so that is a good timing then. Don't see new questions coming in. So thank you guys so much for joining today. Again, Zan, thank you so much for doing this together with me. It was an honor. Everyone, thanks for joining, and have a nice evening. Bye guys. Bye everyone.
Thank you. Bye.